Next, Renee, talk about, oh, we have a question?
Okay, it's a question from Chai Wan from Contra Costa. She wants to know if the one-time payment is in lieu of salary schedule increases, if that's reportable.
Is this a question for CalSTRS or for CalPERS?
She didn't clarify. It says it's a Pepper one-time payment question, so I'm not sure if this is regarding the SB 114 presentation or not, and I haven't
It
gotten
wouldn't be an
a response.
SB 114.
Okay.
It would be,
AB 340.
We'll have Cassie can answer on behalf of CalSTRS.
The question is, what about the one-time payment? Is it in lieu of the salary schedule increase, and is that reportable?
Well, Pepper says that a one-time payment is not creditable compensation. If it's in lieu of a salary increase,
Schedule increase.
so it's like a one-time bonus, is what you're saying. I would say then no, it probably does not meet the definition of creditable compensation because it sounds like it's a one-time bonus, which says is not creditable for the 2 at 62 members. If she still has follow-up questions, she can email me, and I can give you my email address.
So again, Renee is going to talk about full enforcement.
Good morning, everyone. I spoke about full enforcement at the last EAC, so if you weren't here, I'll give you a little bit more information. Otherwise, for those of you that have heard about it, it's kind of just a reminder. Sorry, waiting for the slide. Carmen? Okay, so as far as full enforcement, the plan is to fully enforce everyone as of August 1st, 2013. So we're a little less than 3 months away. It is one category this time. It's not the full 12 categories that we had to enforce last time, so it's not as big of a effort to get everyone ready. They are the 7 remaining business edits that we included in that category. They are the leftover ones kind of from the perk effort that we had with penalties and interest, and those edits were the ones that we still had to work with a little bit to just make sure that they were ready for you guys to be able to push your lines through without any problems. Next one. Okay, so then in the next slide again, it's just listed the 7 remaining edits. Another reminder that the 067 is currently approvable, but it is not going to be approvable as of August 1st. So in case you can't read that, I'll go ahead and read the pay rate adjustment alters earned to earnable ratio for the service period range. So I did ask the last time that we were here for a few questions, for emails to come in if you guys had issues with any of these particular edits. I did get some emails from you. I just wanted to let you know that we are still assessing, still analyzing those edits and how they work, the complications and the problems that some of you mentioned that you had with some of the retros, specifically the 067 and the 103. So we are still looking at those, trying to figure out if there's minor tweaks that we can make to accommodate that, or if that's just going to be a situation where we would have to work with you directly on your file and getting those edits through. We haven't determined exactly what it's going to be yet. As far as the service credit is excessive, error 103, we are looking at the thresholds of that still, so that isn't something that I can report back to you today on whether or not we've changed those. Okay, so again, as a reminder, August 1st, 2013, that's going to be the day. We are going to reach out to those of you who we're going to do a little bit of analysis and figure out who would be considered high risk. And by high risk, it's maybe you have a high number of errors in any of the specific categories. So we'll go ahead and reach out to you just to make sure there's not any additional training that you need. That should be in the next couple of weeks because we will be doing the assessment within the next week. Other than that, if you do have any other concerns, if you have not emailed me already in regard to some of these edits, then please email me and I will, if I don't respond back right away, it's more of just information for me so that we can continue to look at these edits and see if there's anything we can do about them. Okay? Does anyone have any questions? Awesome. Thank you.
Any questions? Okay. So, Bill, here to give some employer training tips.
All right, hello everyone. Does this work? Yes, it does. Okay, great. I was wondering why nobody was scrolling through. I'm like, well, clicker's up there, so. So anyway, yeah, the last EAC I brought up a topic about doing a regular employer training tip or just some helpful training items at every EAC. So this time around, I'm going to introduce the new training videos that are now available in the Secure Employer website within reference items. And there's basically 3 topics. There are penalty and interest related videos. So there's videos on penalty 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's late reports, late contributions. There's an introduction to penalties and interest training video. There are a number on the Secure Employer website, so all the tools that are available on the left-hand side in the Secure Employer website, like manage files, manage reports, employer notifications. These are nice, quick, short videos, about 5 to 10 minutes long each, that you can go in there and view, and they give you a breakdown on the tools that are available and the information that's there. These are great for new employees or people that aren't familiar with CalSTRS reporting, and they also help out, seasoned staff that are familiar. You can go in there and find some stuff out, like, I haven't had to have somebody register in quite a long time. I'm not sure how that works. You can go to the employer administrator video and it tells you exactly how you can register a new user. There's also employer workshop topics. So if we've ever come out and visited you at your site and we go through like CalSTRS membership, credible compensation, we have videos on various topics along those lines as well that are available. These videos are actually hosted on YouTube because it was a bandwidth or a size problem on our end. We have what we call a corporate account, so it's not the regular YouTube where you see all the links and the ads and everything. When you open it up, you're just going to see the video, but it is hosted on YouTube. We did hear from one employer that they had a problem with that because it was blocked by their IT department. So I'm hoping you can work with your IT and they can unblock that. We have the specific web link that you can probably just give to them and they can unblock it for just that specific link. So we're hoping it shouldn't be an issue, but let us know if it is and we'll try to work with you to get you those videos. There's also a training catalog that should be up maybe later today, definitely this week, that lists every single video that's available. It's in like a PDF document. It actually has the link to the video. It has a description of the video. So you can go there as like a one-stop shop instead of trying to hunt and peck for the links and reference items, because there's about 24 videos. So I would recommend going to this catalog to pick and choose what you'd like to view. We're really encouraging you to take a look at these and give us your feedback, because we really want to know if these are hitting the mark or if we're missing something or if they're unclear or it's not covering a topic in depth enough. So please, if you go out there and you view these, send us questions, send us feedback to employertraining@calstrs.com. We're actually putting together a survey for each of these as well as like a review quiz so we can reinforce the topics for each video. Those should be available soon. And then the other thing I wanted to cover is we have a number of SEW user manuals that are also available in reference items. They've been there probably since the beginning. And they're really nice interactive documents. They're PDF documents. You go in there, they're linked, so you can click on a certain topic, it'll pull up the page. There's lots of screenshots and directions on how certain features work in the website. Here's an example of one. This is the Manage Files user manual. Usually you come to a landing page where there's a table of contents and each one of those items is linked, kind of like in a Visio flow diagram. You can click on each one of those. So if you want to know about a certain topic, for instance, how to do mass approvals. There's a topic for mass approvals. You can click on that box. It's going to open up this page. It shows you a screenshot. It gives you step-by-step instructions on how to do that specific action. So these are really nice. It's a nice tool for people to look up how to do certain items in the Secure Employer website. And that is my training tip for this time. Any questions for me? Yes.
I mean, I haven't watched Veena from Orange County before you say that. I haven't watched all the videos and trainings. I'm sorry about that. But what I want to know is, do you also have anything for like new employees new staff member for districts where they can see about membership rules, PEPRA, and reportable, non-reportable items?
Yeah, like I was saying, those workshop topics, how we used to go out and give like a one-day workshop and you got a binder with membership topics, credible compensation topics. We've sort of converted those into these training
it's in
videos.
one of these?
Yes.
Okay.
So I think there's 7 separate ones on those sorts of topics.
Okay.
So yes, those are available. We don't have one for 2% at 62 yet, but we are working on developing that. And that's another thing. I mean, if there's things that are missing or topics that you'd like covered, let us know and we can develop a training video on those and put it out there.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Bill. So in terms of the structured agenda, that's it. We did have, before we get into the open forum, there was a couple of other items that CalPERS wanted to talk about. The first one is on arrears billing process. So is Tim coming up to talk about that?
First, I must say I'm so happy to be back with all my school employers. I hope you guys missed me for the last couple of months. I know Ramona has. Anyways, Scott. Huh? Oh, I've had a child, and so I've been kind of busy with a new baby. So I'm here to present, and Scott only gave me 5 minutes to talk to you, so it's basically to present, and then I'm out of here. So unfortunately, there's no Q&A. Right, Scott? Oh, I have plenty of time now. All right. So I want to go over a CalPERS process with you, and this is just one scenario, but now that I have more time, I'm going to make it a broader topic and allow you guys to have some questions and answers for it. Recently, in CalPERS, as we go through the system, we're making system enhancements. We're making changes every month. We have new releases, and things are being fixed. And one of the biggest sections of CalPERS that hadn't worked for some time is our service credit purchase area. And they've had a lot of changes and a lot of enhancements made, and now they're working through their backlog, and they're getting through and they're burning through, which means some of now the arrears cases are starting to be processed through. And if some of you have already received arrears invoices, I think from launch to January, we only processed 26 cases, and then from February to end of April, we processed 258 cases. So you can see that once something's fixed, work gets generated. That work now has created some questions from the schools, and I've already been in contact with a few of you. I think I talked to Francis, and I talked to Tammy with San Diego and some other employers regarding how these invoices and billing notices for arrears cases are created, generated, and who pays them. So that's what I'm here to present. And first off, there's a determination made by our membership unit, and once the determination is made that their arrears case is viable, we reach out to the employers and they submit to us payroll data, generally on a piece of paper or a form or a disk, to our service credit unit in order to do the calculation. We use payroll times the employer rate, the current fiscal year employer rate, creates the receivable amount that's needed for the arrears case. That payroll data does not get sent through CalPERS. It actually gets sent directly to our service credit purchase unit. So the agency used in the determination receives the arrears receivable within their CalPERS account. what that means is that basically the employer for which the determination was made, that means where the appointment resides. In most cases, that's a school district. In my CalPERS, that's where this receivable invoice is going to be sent to. So it's not sent to the county office, it's sent to the school district for which the determination was used. Participant information obtained within the arrears receivable. The invoice itself is very vague. I know someone's already brought copies to me and says, Tim, what is this? It doesn't tell me anything but a bunch of numbers and that I owe a certain amount of dollars. So in working with the schools and some of the public agencies, I agreed and said, you know what, there's an opportunity for us to enhance the system. Unfortunately, the way things get generated through our CalPERS system into PeopleSoft and then back out into an invoice, we don't have a lot of wiggle room per se to improve the invoice. I just can't change the invoice to give you more details. But what I was able to do was generate and create a Cognos report that you as a county office can generate on your own, or the districts can generate, that actually associates the time period the invoice was created and who the invoice was created, the receivable invoice was generated for, in their CalPERS ID. So if you do get one of these arrears invoices, there is a new Cognos report that's out there. It's called the Arrears Receivable Notice Cognos Report. And you can do this for a series of times, so all the way back to 2011 to the current date. You can select a specific district, or the new feature that I'm working on improving Cognos, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later, you can select all districts and you can see exactly how many arrears receivables were generated underneath your county contract. Now, the problem is that in working with, let's see here, generate remittance invoice. Okay, so the problem is, on this remittance advice point is that in working with you, I also tested county offices. If they are the payroll data owner and the retirement data owner, they cannot get into the district's receivables, the financials. I've logged in with Francis numerous times to try to see how can I see my district's financials. Well, you can't. Right now, when you get into the system, you can go in as a district to add and remove and change a contact's user rights. But if you try to click on the financials link, it takes you right back to the county office's receivables. So that's a problem. And I've addressed that, and I've logged a defect for that, that if you were to select the division left-hand navigation link and go into as a district, then you should be able to select their receivables and see what their receivables are, especially if you're the one having to pay for these things and the districts don't pay directly to us. So that is a gap in time, and I've already logged a defect to hopefully allow the county offices who are both the payroll data owner, responsible for sending contributions, and the retirement enrollment data owner access to the districts. In the meantime, for right now, for paying these, what my recommendation is to generate the Cognos report. It provides you the receivable ID. And then what I'm being asked by our fiscal unit, and they want to stress this at a very high level, please generate the remittance advice report out of my CalPERS. Please do not use the old 626 green forms. Do not use your own type of form, because we really need the information on that remittance advice report if you're a company with a check, and then you can actually manipulate it because it opens in an Excel spreadsheet. You can manipulate that document to then provide us with the receivable ID numbers associated to each of these arrear cases, and then pay it on behalf of the school district. I realize that is just a workaround for right now, but these arrears receivables must be paid within 60 days from the day of invoice. And I don't think I can get a system changed unless Renee says, yes, you can change anything you want within 30 days. I can't get it fixed in 60 days. It's probably not going to be fixed, I would say, until the November, December time period, just because of all our other competing priorities to help reduce some of the backlogs. So between now and then, my advice in regards to the arrears process is to generate the report to see which districts have these cases affiliated with them, generate the remittance advice report, include the receivable ID number in there, and then pay it accordingly. So moving on to the next slide. If you've never seen it and it's inside your handout, I kind of doctored this using Snagit. It's one of my little Photoshop things to kind of put what both sides of the pages look like right now. If you are a district, you should be able to go in and see this receivable invoice, and this is what the invoice looks like. We will add language on the bottom of the receivable invoice that says, please generate this Cognos report. So I can put language on the bottom, I just can't edit the fields that look like a graph chart. So we are instructing employers now that if you have one of these cases to generate the report, that'll identify who it's for, and then you should know then, why it's there, because a determination would have been made working with you, and you would have had to send us payroll data in order for us to use in the calculation. So there should be some knowledge once we tell you who the receivables for. If you don't know, since you're the county school, I guarantee the school district should know. Going to the next slide. Eventually, well, you all know right now, because you have to pay your PERS contributions and your health premiums if you have health contracts, this is what the financials page looks like. Once we get access to the school districts to allow you to pay their receivables, again, you can pay by EFT, which is our preferred method. We really, really like you guys paying by EFT, even though we know it's not mandated. The pay, and you can simply select the different check boxes and make a payment by EFT. However, if you're still paying by check, the way to do it is by the remittance advice report from my CalPERS. The other thing is that this all has to be now paid by the employer directly to us. Speaking with our fiscal unit and actuarial office, these are no longer going to be paid through side funds or reserve accounts. They actually have to be paid, including the $500 admin fee. So that's why they're now created as receivables, and as such, they need to be paid. If they're not paid after 60 days, that's when you'll start receiving the late dunning letters, 30, 60, and 90 days after the initial 60-day period. If you have them on the remittance advice report, you can send them all at once. Like this screen shows, you could technically check all those boxes and make a payment, one-time payment. Or if you just want to pay them outside of your, yeah. Sorry.
Modesto City Schools, Lori Cody. What I was saying was if we needed to pay it separately, or we can lump it in with our other payment.
Mm-hmm.
So we can still lump it in as long as we designate that we're also including that amount with it.
If you're paying by check, that's where the remittance advice report's required,
that's
because that's where you'll provide us the receivable number.
Okay.
And then you can remove everything else except just those receivables and send us that with your check to pay for these arrears cases, or you can just add it as a separate line with your PERS contributions and your health premiums if you have health, and put it all at once. But we
Okay.
need that receivable ID to know
To connect
out of a pool of money where money goes to.
Okay. Okay.
The other thing is on that screen, if you've ever used my CalPERS, I get a lot of questions from employers, is do we have to actually pay what is shown on the screen if we're doing by EFT? And no, if you know that you're doing an adjustment or whatever, if you select the check boxes and hit make payment, you can actually edit how much you're going to pay towards each of those receivables. So if you know you have a huge credit and you don't want to keep paying later, you actually can enter into the system how much you want to pay by EFT. The same thing with the remittance advice report, since you can generate an Excel spreadsheet, just change the dollar amount that you're paying to what you know you should pay if there are any credits coming your way, due to some adjustments. And then with the rolling balance approach, at the end of the year, we just have to make sure everything is paid in full. The receivables, though, definitely need to be paid in full within 60 days.
Yeah, because right now we pay by check, and we were wondering too, because when we're sending our contributions, it's showing how much we owe for PEPRA, but it's not. It's showing we haven't paid anything for PEPRA, but we're including that in with our other payment.
That's a problem with
So-
fiscal services. So right now, what I would say, and this is kind of going more on the my CalPERS
I know,
side.
I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to.
It's okay.
there.
You're not the only employer. A lot of people didn't recognize when we launched PEPRA that we created a new receivable IDs for those PEPRA plans. And so what they did was miscellaneous is miscellaneous. They just paid it all within their one miscellaneous rate plan. With PEPRA, we do have the 2 rate plans. So if you are one of those have always paid lumped to 1 rate plan, then you can work with our fiscal services unit to have them break it out accordingly to what it is. But that's the reason why they asked me to come here and stress, please use both the remittance advice report through my CalPERS or by EFT, because we actually break it out. And then you can just make the payments and we know how much to put in each bucket. They, for some reason, say they keep getting the old 626 forms, the old green documents, and that doesn't give us the information we need to deviate out all the funds. Question in the back.
Thank you. Victoria, Marin County Office of Education. I have two questions. One being, you mentioned that part of the reason this is all coming into existence is that it's no longer being billed against the reserve account. Are you going to update the letters that are sent to the members? Because it still says that it will be billed against the reserve account. For the 20283 arrears notice to the employee, it says your service credit's been updated, your employer will be charged to the reserve account.
We can look at that form of notice. I know in this conversation, because I've been working a lot with the membership teams as well as the service credit teams for a number of things, but one of them is to clarify these need to be paid now within my CalPERS, and we're not offsetting anything anymore. So I know working with our actuarial office, a circular letter is going to go out to redefine the policy and procedures behind this. And then if any form or notice is being sent in the contrary to this new change, I need to know because I can then work with the forms team to update that form as well.
Okay.
So
I have one of those. It's in my CalPERS as an invoice, and we got the copy of the letter to the employee, and they're in conflict.
please send me those, both of those, and that's part of another bigger project I'm working on later, and I'll kind of go into a little bit at the end.
Okay, fantastic. Second question is, you say that it'll be due, the invoices are due in 60 days from the invoice date, but you'll notice even on your example here that the invoice date is less than 60 days before the due date.
So, this is the lovely part of my CalPERS, because right now when the receivables created, it puts that as a due date of June 30th. It's the end of the fiscal year. And even if we created them in August, if you go to that page, it'll say
June 1st. It always is the first of the month in which it would actually be due. So your example is the invoice date's 1/14.
Oh, June 1st. Those are supposed to be changed, and this is just a doctored up version.
Well, the real ones are like that too.
I know, the old ones. Again, we just started defining this process and working through all the kinks. So that's where, we had a number of employers contact me and they're like, it's not fair that, I just now get notified this and it's due within 30 days. What happened for people who got these notices back in September, October? Do they have a longer period to pay? What the system displays and what's truly required, we're working to fix. And so I think there was a fix to show, the 60-day due mark in the system. But from what I got from actuaries and from the service credit purchasing is the day the invoice is created, you have 60 days after that day to make a payment. You have within 60 days.
So we should disregard the due date on the invoice?
I would just say pay as soon as you possibly can.
Well,
The invoice date, just know within 60 days from the invoice date, that's the day it's paid. Okay. If you can show me examples where it's less than 60 days or greater than 60 days, again, I'll work with the CalPERS developers and the forms people to get that shored away.
all right.
This is all new to me within the last month.
New to me this week. Thank
Oh.
you.
Francis from LA County. On the invoices, we've had some of our districts already received a mailed copy of the invoice. And some of our districts want to make the payment direct to CalPERS. They don't want to come through the county office. But they're wanting to have the invoice identify what the arrears is for, or the individual who the arrears is for. Mm-hmm. Is it possible to put that information on the invoice?
I cannot. That's what the Cognos report's for.
So
I've asked, but they can't. How our PeopleSoft system works is that they cannot include additional fields that pull from our data systems to populate a CalPERS ID and a participant name associated to a receivable ID. So the workaround that we came up with in order to not have to redo our PeopleSoft system was then to allow each agency the ability to run a report at any time they want, and then they should be able to match the receivable ID on the invoice to the Cognos report and know who that person's for.
Okay, so that means they need to have access for their financials.
Well, no, because to run Cognos reports, you don't need access to financials. Anybody should have access to Cognos reports. I'd have to look at some of the security restrictions, but the Cognos report itself Can I get into this when I go over the contacts part? Because I have to talk about it holistically.
Okay, then I have another question. On the Cognos report, we have a number of our districts that have arrears. Some of them have a separate posting for the $500 administrative fee. Others do not, but the amount that is in arrears is less than 500. Is there a discretion on when CalPERS is applying the $500 or not? Or is that going to be billed separately at a later date?
The $500 gets generated the same time the arrears calculation goes through, and it's a flat $500 fee regardless if the arrears is less than or greater than $500. So
Right.
once we hit that calculate button, that's when my CalPERS says create the receivable, and both 2068, which is the arrears, 20233 arrears receivable, I think 2067, which is the 500 admin fee, gets generated in PeopleSoft. From PeopleSoft, it then goes out and back into my CalPERS to send out notices to employers.
Okay,
So
because-
both the 500 and the receivable should be created at the same time.
But some of our amounts due are less than $500, which says the $500 fee was not applied.
Well, it should be two separate receivables. You should have one for the arrears and one receivable ID completely different for the 500 admin fee.
I've seen both. I've seen the separate $500 and an arrears, and then just an arrears amount that is less than $500.
I see Emily standing up.
Just for clarification, there's different administrative fees, but Government Code Section 20283 provides for the $500 administrative fee. So if we determine a membership eligibility and that Government Code Section 20283 applies, then that $500 could be more than the receivable, but because you're subject to it because the employee was not brought into membership within 90 days of when he should have been, that's why you have a separate billing for that.
Okay, so then whatever is on either the invoice or the Cognos billing, that is all that the district will have to pay at that time?
Yes.
Okay, for that individual?
For that individual.
Okay.
And you'll actually receive a separate receivable ID per participant. So they have 5 people, each one of those will receive a different receivable ID.
Thank you for your work around Victoria, Marin County. For the receivable notice Cognos report, could we request that to be broken out further since that's our detailed report to have the net change of earnings, the employee amount, the employer amount, so we see how the invoice total was derived?
That's a very good question.
I mean, everything else is broken out.
It's good.
Everything else we do.
Maybe.
Maybe?
Maybe.
All right.
No, really, what we're waiting on is the service credit purchase unit is still going through some enhancements to their screens.
Okay.
In order for me to create a Cognos report, I need to tie it to a field within my CalPERS. So until they can get that displayed, the employer share, the member share, the total amount, and some other details used, I think one of them is the pay period used, begin and end date, the pay period used. Yeah. Once that gets into my CalPERS, then I will work with the service credit purchase team to enhance this Cognos report to give you more details. So I am working to give you everything you want before you even ask me.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, Vina.
I know. I do like your frowns, though. I have 2 questions. One is, let's say a employee was in arrears and district discovered within 120 days that they didn't make the person a member, and they just on their own start collecting employee and employer. We paid it to you guys. Is it still going to generate? Is PERS still going to generate because the information, we started reporting the information past 90 days? Is there going to be any consequences? That's what I want to know.
Now you're getting outside of my expertise. I just know how the system works. These are business rules, and I'm going to have to defer it to Emily.
Because lots of time districts discover later, and they always are confused. Should we first ask PERS, or should we just start collecting arrears? So I didn't know if they start collecting on their own, then there might not be any $500 penalty.
Okay, so under Government Code Section 20283, it requires the employer to enroll the member into membership within 90 days of when they should have been. You're talking about 120 days later.
I mean, I wanted to make sure it's over
In
90.
your scenario, the $500 fee would apply. Also, under Government Code Section 20283, I believe B, it says that the cost cannot be turned over to the member. So the employer is subject to paying both the member and employer contributions plus $500 administrative fee. So by collecting, we can go back to the employer and say, Government Code Section 20283 applies in this situation. Back out the payroll that you've reported, and we'll send you a bill.
So your advice is if it is over 90 days, we should just wait and go through you guys only and not
Correct. You can bring to
automatically-
our attention, hey, you know what, this happened. Again, I go back to that notice of exclusion that employers
Right.
have. Use it. When you use that, saying, I'm not bringing you into membership because of X, Y, Z, and the member signs it, and then you guys later learn that, oh, they didn't disclose information to you, that could alleviate you being subject to 20283.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is, these receivables, do you generate how do you generate once a month, or how will I think of going and looking? It's sitting there.
So that's another good question, because up until probably last week, let's see how am I supposed to say this. There's a process in place that needs to be followed for us to send these out. And generally the process is, in a perfect world, on a nightly batch process, anything that's created in PeopleSoft and that generates a receivable gets sent out, unless it's due to health and there's a dunning process, a roll process that needs to be required. So there's certain criteria, but normally it's on a nightly batch process. The notices themselves right now, most of the notices are being suppressed. We're not sending them out because we need to internally make sure the information that's sent to you is accurate. So the program areas are responsible for reviewing these notices and then kicking them out themselves. Once they're happy with the information, like this invoice now has been vetted through, we can automate it so it's supposed to be going out on a nightly basis. Up until last week, or 2 weeks ago, we just automated these. So some of your school districts may have never received, if they've never logged in, they may have never received an actual hard copy invoice mailed to them, and they may not know. Others who do log in and have access to the receivable screen, they may have seen this and all of a sudden which generate calls to our call center. Call center created workflows to our membership unit, and that's kind of what started this process I was involved with. So I would say going forward, a notice should be sent either by mail or to email, which is what I'm going to allude to when I talk about the contact information on a nightly basis once the receivables are created. And then on the Cognos report, they should be there as soon as the receivable is created also, probably the day after. So if I create the receivable today, you probably would have to run the Cognos report for tomorrow to see it.
Okay, so let's say we send the enrollment file to you guys on a nightly basis, and you guys see that somebody's membership date is past 90 days. Mm-hmm. Would that trigger this?
That would trigger something to Emily's unit to look at and to see a determination. I just started that once membership has made the determination and you've already been notified and somebody from your agency has already sent the payroll information to us on a hard copy, our service credit unit gets it. That's where I'm starting from, because that's where they enter data into my CalPERS, they hit that calculate button, and everything starts to work from there.
So you only start working when you receive that blue, whatever, AB 1344 form.
I start when it becomes easy.
Okay. Thank you.
So yeah. I mean, there's an entire process regarding the determinations, and that's all on Emily's side. I don't know that much about it. I just know how the receivables are created and generated. Before I answer any more questions, I do want to get to the contacts page. So knowing all of you, as well as I know all of you, some of you have deemed that you like control. You like control of your districts. And so you are the payroll data owner, you are the retirement data owner, and in most parts, your school districts have never thought about My CalPERS, unless they have a health contract or an SIP contract, right? And a lot of that was fear because what could my districts do to corrupt my data? And, I have some problem children on our end that we just don't like touching my CalPERS stuff. I am here to say that every school district should have at least one contact who can access my CalPERS. And they should be a general contact because we need people to log in order to see and run Cognos reports that they can run in order to see some of the financials that may be associated to them. Also, a lot of our forms and notices are being sent out. There was a form, I believe, Tammy sent me last night regarding certifying the unused sick leave and the unused vacation time at time of separation. Our benefits office sends a notice out to employers just to validate the information, right? Well, a lot of these forms and notices are being sent to the employer for which the appointment resides. So that means these certification forms of retirement, these invoices are all being sent to your districts. And how we send forms and notices is generally we send them to a primary contact who's listed and their preferred method of communication. So if you don't have a contact at a school district, then they will be mailed as long as we have an accurate address on file for them. So that's why I'm saying that each of you should at least have your districts have somebody who can log in, confirm the preferred method of communication, and that'll help speed up how they notify you of specific things going down the chain. In addition to that, you as county offices, if you're the payroll data owner and you're the retirement data owner, regardless if they can log in and they can select all those system access rights, we still restrict what they can do because you have deemed them not able to report enrollments or report payroll. They have read-only access, and so they can see some information. They just cannot make changes. So from a security perspective, county schools, please know, we'll work with you to restrict data. If they're the enrollment data owner themselves, then they can do the enrollments. But if you're the county office, we really need them to have somebody log in. And speaking of contacts, I'm working on a project right now. We kicked it off yesterday, and we're going to be looking at all these forms and notices, invoices, and dying letters sent to you to ensure, one, is the information correct? Two, are they going to the right people? Three, is it following the process, and are we generating excuse me, and are we sending them out? And these forms and notices, choking up here, emotional. I'm getting there. So these forms and notices will be sent out to a specific primary contact. Some of them will go to your financial primary contact. Some will be sent to general. Some will be sent to payroll, human resources, right? By the end of this year, I hope to have some kind of document that tells you what. Thank you. In the meantime, I would suggest this. If you really want to get a hold of everything sent to you, you should have a contact type defined for every contact type listed in my CalPERS. You yourself can be the same primary contact type across the board. It doesn't mean you're going to get a new username, login, or whatever. You can be, and I've seen in this example, you can see Rupin Ronald Quinton Del Atesta. It's a mass name if you guys didn't catch that. I hope nobody really has a name like that. But this person is technically the agency election officer. They're the general primary contact. They're the payroll primary contact. So you can be the primary contact. Just make sure that as a primary contact, you've defined your preferred method of communication, and we'll send things to you via email or mail. As long as you have a primary contact, you should be getting notices. I've looked at a number of county school accounts and public agencies and state agencies, and I see they only have general down the list. Or they have one person that's payroll, but they don't have a primary payroll person identified. So you should always have at least a primary person defined for each of the contact types. And if you want to be that special person that has all 7 or 8 of them, you can be. And we'll start using those primary contacts to send out these invoices and notices. So hopefully in the future, for this arrears case, I've worked with Emily in the membership unit and the service credit purchase unit. We're looking to make the invoices go to the payroll data owner. So hopefully these invoices and the billing will soon go to the payroll data owner, which is the county office, so you can start paying them through your receivables. And the primary payroll contact or the financial contact, I think it goes primary financial contact for this will be the one that sent these invoices or mailed to. That's a future enhancement, but we're looking at doing that. And so I just want to stress that please, have your school districts create contacts and have everybody go in to log them. And don't be fearful that they're going to corrupt your stuff, because they really have limited access, but they should be able to go in and look at some data. Okay? I don't see a lot of smiles. All right. So that's contacts, forms, notices, how we send out certain items. You now know that everything's right now being sent to the school districts generally, because that's where the appointment resides. So I know you guys love speaking with all your districts. You're gonna have to work with them to get this stuff back to you if you need it in order to send stuff back to CalPERS. Especially the certification one, right? Because right now you're the one that does the enrollments. So if you have to change the unused sick leave or unused vacation leave for whatever reason, they need to get that to you so you can make those changes. I went way over 5 minutes, so is there any other questions? If not, I can give you guys my telephone number and email address. I am looking for some help from you guys to make the system better. I always am. My email address is tim_herback, HERRBACK, @calpers.ca.gov. The things I'm looking for are issues with the system's performance. So if you guys get crazy null-point errors, or the system takes 10 minutes for a transaction to go through, I want that information, because I'm trying to make the system better. But I need some help, because I need to know the time it occurred, some of the steps that occurred, who did the process, so that I can work with our IT team to figure out what happened at that day to slow the system down. So if you guys can share that information with me, just keep fire. Ramona's hit me with like 30 emails, so just send me that information. Any other questions?
Can you just do a survey of who's in this room as to which county offices do all of the enrollments and which ones allow their districts to do all the enrollments?
Show of hands, who allows their districts to do enrollments? Who here says districts don't touch my CalPERS? In my experience, it's been about 50-50. And what's really new to me is I get a lot more requests recently as the county offices become more accustomed with my CalPERS to start changing data ownerships to the districts to allow them to do enrollments. Because they really should be looking at some of the data, checking for membership validations, and doing the enrollments and updates. So I'm finding a trend going closer to the districts, but it's really up to you as a county office. Yes. Any other questions? All right. How much time do I have?